and they haven't ended up playing that themselves before yet. They've played 2 games of the Sivir, 2 games of the Zeri, more towards the late game insurance of the carries rather than the early lane pressure into something like that one item spike. I wonder if we're going to get a Yuumi first pick just to solidify that identity for photo control.
You can certainly imagine it, can't you? Because we saw photo control playing that versus Ultra Prime and absolutely gapping the bot lane, but actually it's an Ashe, which you would expect to be support, but it could be AD carry alongside HYCAN.
It's flexible, but that's why it's so good as a first pick. I think that Ashe is probably the best first pick outside of... It's either Ashe or Maokai, which is why I expected it needs to answer with that as well. Ashe is flexible between AD carry and support. You have multiple builds, even in the kind of the bot lane carry role when you're farming. You don't necessarily have to be a marksman. You can go for something a bit more kind of cooldown, poke, ult, and W focus. But on the other side, JDG, they say, okay, you've got the Ashe, you're already going to get that lane pressure. If you're going to be pushing in lane anyway, let's have something that can soak that pressure and eventually come online and start to eclipse your value.
Yep, the Yuumi comes out. Kanavi locks in the tree once again. So very standard lock-ins here for JDG. 2 of the strongest champions on the patch. Obviously, Yuumi getting nerfed. We're not on that patch just yet. So still extremely strong. Missing will have that in his back pocket.
Still got like 1 of the 9 lives left.
Exactly, yeah. You can imagine Ruler probably to lean towards something like a Zeri as well. But over on the side of NIP, I'm curious whether they want to match a jungler here. But no, looks like they're going for solo lanes.
And that's very interesting, because, you know, we are looking at 369 as a player, which is, again, very strong in that lane, has played all sorts of different matchups before. Now what NIP have done is said, okay, we have the strong individual laning top laner and a bot lane that basically cannot ever be outshoved. Caitlyn, Ashe, you are fighting level 1, you're taking like Halo Blades on the Ashe, and you're looking to push back whatever duo you have on JDG. They're going to have to soak pressure down there. And now in terms of their answer, I'm really wondering what they now choose to do, because you're unlikely to upset this duo in the bot lane, especially with something like a Maokai. It's not quite like something like a Vi, which can gank quite as early. Same with something like a Sejuani too. But maybe you can draft something which can put this Jax behind, maybe invalidate that side of the map so you have a point of pressure in the early game to play around.
Well, the ban so far from the side of JDG looking to stop any of that early ganking pressure that you were just talking about with a Vi. The Sejuani was the other one that you suggested perhaps could be the second ban from the side of JDG, but NIP perhaps want to set this Jax up. Like you said, trying to get a good top lane matchup could be the way forward for Invincible, and they ban the Renekton from 369.
Wondering how much value something like a Sylas would have for Dream on NIP now as well, because you're going to be 4th picking one of your solo lanes for JDG. I think on the other side, already having the Maokai ult to steal and the ability to play around top side skirmishes with something like a Sylas could be very valuable for Dream and NIP, which makes me think, okay, maybe JDG want to start planning to pick something like an Akali, something like an Azir, stuff like that can deal with that sort of Sylas threat on the other side. I'm just trying to think a couple of steps in advance. What are JDG's priorities heading into the solo lane that they are blind picking for? Well, I suppose they can hold into the counter for the in the top lane as well, but what are they looking to see in terms of NIP's threat that they're holding over them?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, Knight Sylas itself is absolutely terrifying. I've seen him blind pick that before. His Syndra... I'm sure a few people watching know exactly what I'm talking about right there. But looks like it might be the top lane counter for Jax and then saving the mid lane pick so that you can counter as well. So smart here from JDG.
Yeah, the one issue I can have with that is that it's a nullifying pick into the Jax, and it's not something that is going to punish it super heavily. You're going to stop Jax from being able to get massive amounts of solo kills and side lane pressure, because you can always wave play, you can always belly slam the Jax away from melee. But it's not necessarily like you're playing towards that lane. It puts a lot of emphasis on Knight to pick up something which can be played towards from JDG, because it feels you've got nullifying bot lane, nullifying top. Where's your real point of pressure you're going towards? It has to be by process of elimination, something that like Knight locks in.
Ooh, Dream feeling confident though in the mid lane. Brings out Akali up against Knight. Now the Sylas is available that we talked about. Oh no, sorry, Sylas is banned away. What am I talking about?
Oh
so
gosh,
we'll see where Knight's gonna go here up against Akali mid lane.
Gotta get that vision checked out a little bit. Should have put a ward down on those first bans. But it does mean that Knight has to look at this entire composition and says, all right, okay, I really want to have something that I can be played towards. I'm going to get resource in the early game. And it is Yone.
Okay.
So, initiation, solo carry threat, massive scaling. Knight has it all on this pick. And against a low range top side of triple melee, Jax, Sejuani, Akali, expect fights between these top sides.
Yeah, this is going to be a fist fight. Look at the short range, like, entire game we have aside from NIP's bot lane, essentially. This is going to be messy, I think, especially Dream versus Knight in the mid lane. And we were saying Dream is coming into this split wanting to prove himself. New brand, new opportunity, and he blind locks in Akali versus Knight. That is a player with some serious confidence behind him.
I think you need that as well, particularly after the last game that we had. We already alluded to it. Dream went 0-9 in a counter matchup. He was playing Renekton versus Sylas against Raratum, and it was Strive that kind of dealt him that heavy defeat. Now, of course, the mid laner which he sat behind, he shadowed, is waiting in the next series later on today, watching Dream's performance, and now Dream has to sit here, spotlight on him against one of the great mid laners of the LPL in a difficult, interactive matchup, and see what he's made of.
I'm a little bit disappointed deep down that it's Photic playing the Caitlyn and Dro taking the Ashe. I thought it was maybe Dro doing a bit of carrier action in this one, but it will be the Caitlyn AD carry down on that bottom side. Photic versus Ruler, though, in a matchup that on paper you would think Photic and Dro should have the advantage in that laning phase. But we've seen plenty of bottom lanes get messy early on here in the LPL. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of upset in the apple cart.
Yeah, let's see if JDG kind of want to buy into the kind of the real brawliness. They can very much shove in that lane. They can very much fight level 1. But I'm looking now at you know, Ruler and Missing kind of looking against this Ashe lane. Ashe in either role gives you that lane push. It's very dangerous to face it head on.
So let's quickly talk about game plan. We've essentially said it's gonna be a fist fight, but with this like aggressive push in the bottom side from Photic and Dro, like how do NIP have to play that early game out?
So I think from NIP, you're looking for this bot lane to kind of be your anchor. You push that in, you understand that JDG are not going to be able to easily play around that side of the map, and particularly with something like Hawkshot as well, to see where Kanavi is moving across the map. NIP should be the team with more information and more control to make plays. What that should lead into for me is leads on one of these solo laners. My first instinct is going towards Invincible on the Jax. Jax does very well into low range compositions. It's also one of the reasons LPL Jax has done better than other regions, because there are so many more melee picks that you can jump into, leap strike, ult, get so much value out of. Look at this bot lane to be an anchor and the Jax to get ahead. That is dangerous for JDG. Look for them to try and work against that.
All right, well, 369 going to be hopefully mitigating that Jax pick that we saw. And Invincible, you know, boldly locking in that blind Jax when you have to consider the fact that he is not the top laner that many people were expecting coming into this split, right? With Rich on the roster. Rich did play a single game on Gnar, but it's been Invincible playing ever since for the side of NIP. So a player that, once again, something to prove here in the LPL, wants to maintain his starting position on the roster.
And already taking some heavy trades up against the Gragas. Gragas is not by any means a bad individual matchup into the Jax, but as you can see, you lose a bit of that wave control. Things do get a bit frisky, and I really love that the Observers have continued to hold over this lane. Bot lane, you know how it's going to go. It's going to be pushing in, but this top lane, very important for the implications of how the game will go further on.
We said there was going to be a fist fight on the top side of the map. I didn't realize it was specifically in this top lane, just an absolute brawl between 369.
Yeah, we're actually playing on lock camera right now.
Yeah, it's a close one. The sustain coming out from that Gragas, though, makes it so difficult for Invincible as he's trying to get in the grass. Proc, Shalom Bao into the mid lane. Knight underneath his tower, though, trading pretty heavily onto him. Has to flash back out, but will survive.
Xiaolong Bao getting into that mid lane early. Xiaolong Bao has had a number of games already where he has been up in lanes, up in the enemy jungle, even on something like the Sejuani, which in years past was known as a farming jungler. Xiaolong Bao makes that impact found early, takes a flash away from the enemy mid laner, which he said for JDG is very important for them as the game goes on as well in terms of initiation, as the lane which can be very interactive early on and can be a carry for this star player in Knight.
Certainly can be. Kanavi, over the games we've seen so far, has liked to focus on that mid lane a little bit. And we saw him, you know, early ganking for 369 in one of the games. But the thing is, like, JDG, we haven't seen that much material of this roster just yet. And one of my questions is, like, which team are they more similar like? The 2020 JDG, this intelligent roster that's all about macro, or Are we becoming, with every extra top esports player that's signed, do they become more chaotic? Because they were certainly chaotic last year.
Well, you can see that the Chaos is just rearing his head, having a look in. When you stare into the Abyss occasionally looks towards bot lane turret, it would seem. And they're going to pull away from this dive for now. But again, good on Kanavi for at least to start getting some of these saplings down to see what he can do for his lanes. I think Kanavi's job in this early game, and what I want to see keep happening, particularly up until that first Herald as well, is to try and stabilize these lanes and be around for any potential counter so Xiaolongbao can't do what he did just again and kind of put one of these lanes into a difficult situation.
Yeah, should be a tough one to be able to make a massive impact at this stage, the two junglers that we have, just because I feel like, especially down in that bottom side, Zeri Yuumi always going to be very difficult to gank onto. They're always fairly safe, right? Unless you want to go for a dive. But, I mean, could that be on the cards? Could going for dives be on the table? I'm just looking at the junglers here, posturing towards each other, both pathing up to the top side. This could be a scrap, though, Barrett.
It absolutely could be, and again, it's just a reminder of how willing to fight and able to fight these champions are in the early game, particularly in these top three. You have so much melee, you have so much ability to jump onto people.
The flashes all come out. The stun is there, and 369. Oh no, gets the knockup. No way does he survive this one. Gets the slow and walks away with his life.
How the heck does he get away with that? We call it as soon as we see it. Look, expect fights on this top side. Xiaolongbao tries bloody hard to make that happen, but 369, stable as a rock in the top side, just about gets away with that play and draws two flashes out for the attack.
Maybe the most clutch Gragas stun I've ever seen in my life there with the body slam to walk away. And in the meantime, JDG are like, okay, well, you've got two players top side, 369's soaking all of that pressure. We'll grab ourselves an Ocean Drake to start this one off. And now you start seeing these trades. The reason Gragas was picked into Jax, right? It's really hard to get that Counter-Strike stun off.
It's the nullifying lane, and oh, it's more than a nullifying lane! It's more than that!
369! He is absolutely rolling nice today.
It is absolutely more than that. It's a solo kill lane as well. 369 not only gets away with his life, but gets a kill on top of it. JDG, even though the lanes are a little bit hard to play out in the early game, these names on paper are so damn good in lane. JDG not only winning on that top side, getting a dragon on the bot side, overperforming compared to what their draft should be. This is a great sign from the early game from this super team.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely mental. The fact that, like you say, Kanavi's playing bottom side at 369, after getting 2v1'd, turns it around, finds an opportunity onto Invincible with that level 6 spike. And, I mean, 369 is known for his Gragas up in that top side, but wow, what a play. What a play coming out from the man. And what a start to the game from JDG. Now, the gold lead is not significant just yet. It's more about the big picture, I'd say.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me, right? Because we're going to go back and look at this solo kill again. Because if this is happening in lane, when you have this Jax who we've called out as being so important to NIP falling behind, losing this lane, then you have to start wondering, if this early game isn't going well for them, it's going even, then that is a problem for them.
Yeah, I just noticed as well in that clip, that was the precise amount of mana that 369 had to pull off one full combo. He was basically at 0 mana at the end of the play. Knight getting a bit of damage onto Dream. Wasn't sure if it was going to be some kind of all-in, but just trading for the time being. Has managed to even up the gold a little bit. Dream did manage to find a small CS lead early on, but Knight is stabilizing that one. And Yone, certainly a champion that will get stronger with items. Invincible could be in trouble here because Kanavi's on the top side of the map.
Kanavi is on the top side of the map. Trying to think what's going to happen with this wave. It's held for now and allows 369 to, again, just take these trades beyond the wave. He doesn't have to worry about getting blocked out by these minions. Both junglers top side, and maybe NIP looking to recoup some of their losses they just suffered up here.
369 is really trying to push as slowly as possible, trying to look juicy and bait them in.
Well. Everyone's heading towards the top side. Got an Ashe, you got the Zeri Yuumi, fights us to.
Oh, here we go. The knockback onto Invincible. Kanavi goes with an H's grasp, but he's just found an AD carry in his lane. Juo slows him, and it means 369 is left alone. Ruler and Missing have just arrived, though. And NIP, can they fight this? They have the numbers advantage, but certainly not the health bar advantage.
So both teams realized the next play was happening in that top side. JDG just a little slow to the punch. So that is going to be a kill against that Gragas. Sadly, that kill doesn't go for something like Invincible. It goes over to Xiaolongbao instead. But it does open up a Herald attempt. And no Maokai ult to respond to this. That was just used in the previous play.
But Xiaolongbao's kind of low, and Knight coming in off of the flank has that ultimate available. The Yuumi roots go down. Will Knight follow up? Zhou flashing away. Dream on the backline is Xiaolongbao just soloed by Knight. Dashes out on the top side of the play. 369 is back as well. Double kill for Knight as he gets the healing from the Zoomies. And that's JDG outright hand-stiffing NIP.
It is once again an absolute brawl. Whenever you fight early with these kinds of champions, low-range ones, when you commit to a fight, there aren't many ways out. As soon as Dream doesn't quite get that kill onto Knight, the fight falls apart. And Knight with the slick sidestep to get out of that arrow.
Very nicely done there by Knight. 2-0 now. And you know, Knight locking in this stylish mid lane pick. You know, you expect big things, but then getting 2 kills in an early skirmish like that, it feels very reminiscent of his time on Top Esports, where so many of their games are off of a single skirmish where someone gets fed and goes crazy. Now we're looking to the next few minutes for Knight.
Yeah, and when this Herald fight is won, again, it's just another early game metric which NIP have lost in, which they were really hoping to win. They want to get ahead with this Jack. They want to get ahead on this top side before the Yone, before the Zeri gets online. Losing fights like this by such slim inches, you understand why they go for the play. It's the right play to go for, but JDG just outplayed.
And just managing to make it happen and buying enough time for 369 to get back in that fight as well. 369 actually still having a CS advantage up in the top side despite that previous death, and does have the wave in a pretty good spot. Denies the cannon there as well. It's just a little bit of insult to injury. Dream actually following back in on Knight, returning, and that's Dream's flash gone. Xiaolongbao waiting in the wings, but won't find a chance here.
I'm not sure Dream really factored in the red buff in that trade, the extra slow, the extra damage over time, tilting that trade in the Yone's favor. And these lanes from JDG, though, in the very first few levels in the early push, expected them to mainly go in NAP's favor. That has now been crested by JDG, and they are in control of the map. Vision starting to creep across the river. There are a couple of blue wards in their side too, but JDG looking very competitive and setting up for this next dragon, the first of which they've already stacked. Another thing, another metric going in their favor, which will set them up to just get to their item breakpoints and keep this game in control of themselves.
And I love this as well. They're like, look, we have push mid, we have push bot. We could just go straight for the Drake, but instead, we're going to go for the Drake and a whole bunch of tower plates on the bottom side as well.
That's
Ruler and Missing getting 4 tower plates while Kanavi and Knight managed to get that Drake. So JDG, I mean, you say that people can't have their cake and eat it. It looks like they're eating their cake to me.
They have in fact baked another cake. They've slammed it into the bottom turret and given all that gold over to Ruler. This is a lane which, again, we expect to go in terms of push, in terms of CS advantage to Photic and Zhuo. That has not been the case. Kanavi now has the flash. He has the ult. He's going towards bot.
Uh-oh, Photic's going to get rooted up here. Zhuo hides behind. The cleanse comes out in the 90 caliber net. Photic will survive, but I'm not sure if that tower will for that much longer.
No, and I guess it's a summoner away from the lane that would love to be playing more aggressively, love to be pushing up. Again, it just seems like every time we talk about this game, it's another early game metric going in favor of JDG. And JDG, once again, playing through their lanes.
Oh, Invincible with the counter-strike dodges a lot of the damage there from 369. Doesn't find his solo kill opportunity. There's Kanavi now trying to take everything from Xiaolongbao. He's like, okay, I'm getting the neutrals, but I want a little bit more than that. I want your camps as well. And Xiaolongbao just in a 1v1 at this point between the junglers.
Oh, the arrow!
Damage, but that's a hell of an arrow coming out from Troll. The follow-up is there. Dream trying to get the kill, the healing. Not enough. And now Knight in a 2v1. Dream trying to follow him, but Knight over the wall.
Okay, so that is something for NIP because they're losing through their lanes. They really needed the next Sejuani play to work out. Oh!
He tried to knock him into the barrel. Oh, the Scorch! It's not enough. My God, that could have been closer. 369 trying to knock Invincible into the barrel he laid out earlier. Didn't quite find the play.
Not quite, but again, it's just pushing Invincible out of lane. He's not getting that CS. He's not getting the advantages he wants. Neither is bot lane.
This is not how the 2v2 is meant to go. This isn't meant to happen. Ruler just dominating. Ace in the hole comes out. SHANGHAI trying to punish, gets a bit of damage, but there's a Yuumi on his shoulders. You just can't finish the job. Now Dream's here as well. A new contender approaches, but Ruler's gone.
That's just a casual 2v3. Pop both ultimates, take away the HP. Once again, flexing the muscles. Everyone on JDG flexing the muscles. In NIP, they are starting to lack for options. It really does feel like they're looking for scraps. They're looking for some way that Xiaolongbao can get involved in the game. And this, for me, is against the run of play and just about the only thing that could go well for them at this point in the game. They are lucky to get this one play. That arrow was on point. The roams were on point in terms of from the mid lane to that play. But NIP, that is best case scenario in a terrible early game for them.
Yeah, finding a pick, but I mean, the easiest way to judge the lead right now is just look at the item inventories on both sides and count the mythics, because it is very one-sided right now with the shield burst finish missing having a mythic as well at this point. And you know, Kanavi doesn't have his, but that's because he's gone for a legendary item as his first. So, you know, very heavy advantage for JDG. Knight will finish this tower in the bottom side. The Herald's coming up. I mean, it's all smelling like roses.
And oh so sweet it must be for the JD Gaming fans. And now you have Ruler missing, setting up shop in that mid lane. They've already taken that bot lane turret. They had that Herald towards it. They are now free and able to roam to whatever side of the map they want to. And they have the vision to keep doing this as well. Knight just roaming in to make sure he's available for that. He might see him punished.
Oh, Knight having to use his ultimate just to get out to safety there. Dream there to try and punish. Remember, Dream on this Akali, plenty of opportunity to mechanically show what you're made of. Ruler very quick on the cleanse there, keeps himself safe. Nature's Grasp coming out as well. Perhaps a little overprotectively, not realizing that Ruler had the cleanse available, but either way, JDG survived the attempt.
I think it makes a little bit of sense when you consider maybe a Sejuani ult could have come as follow-up. Maybe there could have been some danger of an Akali going towards it. But what that means is no Maokai ult again for the Herald, no Ashe ult for the Herald. Look for that Sejuani ult. That's the next big tool that NIP have to use.
Invincible is not here and does not have teleport. This is a 4v5 in favor of JDG, and SHANGHAI on the wrong side of the play here. He'll be chased down by Ruler and missing, and will be slowly but surely gunned down by that little lightning girl. And that'll be a Herald. That'll be another advantage for JDG.
It feels so desperate from NIP. You can understand why. JDG, they are far further ahead than they should be at this point in the game. NIP, we kind of called it out a minute or two ago. They're lacking options, and it feels like if it isn't Xiaolongbao leading the play, things get very difficult without that Sejuani ult finding huge value. And again, in the next few minutes, it feels like the emphasis is once again on NIP. They're getting pushed in everywhere. They're losing objectives. They're losing across the board. NIP, what else have you got to show us? Because you're going to have to come up with something creative now to find wins against the run of the game.
I think this is the thing, right? We're at a position now, 5,000 gold in 16 minutes for JDG. Like, they are dominating and still have a Herald to work with, Dragon coming up, etc, etc. Now for NIP, we need to see some of these players with insane mechanics stepping up to the plate. Players like Photic and Dream, who in the past, we have seen massive individual performances from Photic, especially in the late game. We've seen crazy levels of play from him. We need to see a bit more of that as Kanavi dodging everything. And SHANGHAI, I mean, there's nothing he can do beyond that side of the play. 369 now looking for Invincible as well. Invincible has felt the Gragas ult before, but he won't feel it this time because it's Kanavi to finish that kill off. It'll be a third Drake as well, and it's just going from bad to worse for NIP.
The desperation continues. It's another swing and a miss. JDG are waiting around every corner. The last time that NIP fired that Ashe out ult onto the Maokai, it hit. It ended up being competent to so many things. That was about as good as it gets, and they can't replicate that again. The worst thing about this for NIP, we said that they need to look for these plays. What we didn't mention is that it gets worse every time you mess up one of these plays. You only have so many shots in the chamber, and that's another one flown wide.
Yeah, and I hope they're not playing Jhin right now because they've had 3 shots, and the 4th is the final one. As this is the start of the play where everyone thinks that Kanavi is stuck here alone, but he's got a solo laner there, wards for the TP, dodges everything, and then W's back on. I mean, Mechanically beautiful. Maokai's not really known as a mechanically intensive champion, but that was gorgeous.
It was, and also you can see so much of the power of the follow-up mobility from JDG's comp. You have Ruler and Missing flying over a wall with the Zeri E being able to cross terrain. You got Knight being able to fly in with that stacked Q as well. JDG, they're so quick to pounce, and they're in position to pounce. We hadn't seen this team since day one of the LPL. They come back and they continue to fight, continue to flex the muscles.
Oh, it's the root on Charlotte. That's a good little arrow, though. Stops the damage, stops the kill happening. Herald going to be dropped, though, and Knight's already prepped this wave for his team. The wave is crashing. The Herald is there. And you think this will be another tier 2, or in fact, this is the first tier 2 for JDG as they start to try.
Put this into good perspective. How often do you see this before Baron is even alive? They're hitting an inhibitor turret.
It's insane, and it feels a little bit top esports right here from the side of JDG as they are dominating the early game. Whoa, gets annihilated. Ruler in a 2v1 under the tower, and he might just win it as well. Ace in the hole comes out, but it's just not enough. Shadowbound falls. Ruler is a monster.
Where the hell has this team been? We've seen one series from this team where they were figuring some stuff out. They've taken a break, they've sat back for a couple of weeks watching the other teams play, and they have come back to absolute fanfare. What an absurd performance from all members of JDG.
I love how 369 is so confident at this point. He's literally ulting Invincible for harass. Like, he's just chilling in the mid lane, flashes the ulti. At least they get a summoner spell out of him, but... Can't dodge everything, Ruler. Can't dodge everything. Oh, dear. But, I mean, yeah, JDG, this is a victory lap at this point. Like you say, we're only 20 minutes in.
Yeah, you've got to put this back into perspective. Again, this is a team from JDG which arguably should be behind in the early game, arguably should be finding it hard to play through lanes, but once again, they're looking for a play, grouping up in the mid lane, Knight off of Vision. Let's see where this next play lands.
Yeah, Dream could be in a really awkward spot here. Finds Knight, maybe can go for a solo kill here. Shadowbow over the wall, forces the flash out from Knight. Nice little attempt there from NIP. At least they get a summoner spell, but JDG are just gonna start Baron. This feels dangerous, but they do have a 10k gold lead. Maybe that's enough to just brute force things. Dream on the backside of the play, trying to get onto Ruler here. The root gonna go over as Ruler's over the wall. In the meantime, Knight's on the backside and takes out the jungler. Shadowbow down, and the Baron attempt's gone from NIP, but can they find the fight instead? Ruler's still alive. Dream goes in, but he's all out of cooldowns and zapped on down. Knight dives into the backside as Invincible escapes, and it's Duo just to try and escape with his life. Knight's old support player being chased down, but will flush out to safety.
JDG, they tank the Baron, they eat a couple of ultimates, and they do lose one person in the fight, but they don't lose the fight, even with all of those things taken into account. They go to the Baron, and this is just slamming home an incredible slam dunk of a Game 1.
Yeah, this is something else. Like, I expected JDG to come in looking strong today, but this is mental. And now with the Baron as well, you expect them to finish the game in the next couple of minutes. I don't see how NIP can fight them unless JDG like dive the fight or something, which is a very real possibility at this point, let's be honest.
That is legitimately the only way I can see this getting worse for JDG and better for NIP, because you're tanking the Baron here. You don't have a full tank at this point. You've got, you know, AP itemization on the Gragas and the Maokai. They've already taken half their HP. You have Dream somehow finding his way into the backline, and yet it's still not enough. That is how far ahead JDG are and how well they have played to get to this point.
And, you know, Knight at the end of that play just sees Photic and Duo, and he does not see enemy LPL players. He sees his top esports trainees and destroys them both handily. And now to the bottom side, go JDG, looking for Invincible and Shadowbow. They will just about get away from the Everfrost.
Oh, and every time someone walks up now from JDG, you need to be so worried of whether they have that Yuumi attached to them for the extra move speed, the extra ability to land that slow from the Q, the root from the ult. You cannot afford to get hit by too many things, but there's so much stuff being thrown at them. Maokai ult first and foremost.
Yeah, TP behind enemy lines here. Dream trying to make the last-ditch play, but he's slowed by the Maokai saplings, and he just can't get in. JDG now, turn around, get the knock-up onto Dream. Health bars are low, though. Perhaps an opportunity. Yuumi all across Team Dream in the back line. The health bars are Hello, but nobody's falling. Photic finds one. Perhaps a chance. 369 on the front line looking to get close to Photic, but those headshots are doing damage. He's got 2 items to work with.
There he goes!
Slowed and collapsed upon. Ruler chases them down, and that might just be game.
That is an unceremonious execution by JD Gaming. We called this out from the start. JD Gaming were not the team with the draft that should win early lanes, that should be ahead, but they are such good players that they manage it anyway.
Brutalized, absolutely destroyed. NIP, a lot to think about coming out of this first game because they've got to change things up. Perhaps in the draft, perhaps in the early game. Having, you know, giving JDG the opportunity to counter those solo lanes, maybe not the way forward.
So many things to forget as well, given how that game played out. It did just feel like,
true.
You know, I felt like that draft was playable. I felt like that was a draft where the Jacks could get some value. I felt like that bot lane should have had control, should have been something to be a platform for NIP to play their early game